Yeah, he looked at me once. My knees immediately buckled and I fell down that very tight spiral staircase. Yeah, you guys don't know this, but it's actually a death trap to get to the GSL casting area. In the top right, his opponent, the blue, a Protoss player representing Ting. He is Neeb.
That's a sufficiently NA butt rock there for the intro of the American hero on the top right here, Jaggernath. Oh my goodness. The bold eagles, I can hear them screeching in the skies as they soar over this match.
And Neeb is going to be, hopefully, I'm expecting some shenanigans to a degree out of him in this match. I think one of the biggest strengths of Neeb as a Protoss player has been a little bit more of a commitment to throwing in the aggressive builds while still being a very solid macro player, as compared to, you know, I don't mean this in any slight sort of way, but, you know, you get guys like Showtime that you're usually expecting a bit more of a macro type of play, very defensive, build up the force, hold off the attacks. But if Neeb smells blood in the water, if he thinks his opponent's being super greedy, I mean, when he was playing against Estrella in the America Finals, his response to Estrella being a generally greedy player was to like cannon rush and proxy almost every game. At least the ones that I cast, he was doing a cheese fest. He brought out the whole damn cheese platter, fountain and everything. So I wouldn't be surprised if it comes to that in this series at some point, that we get the aggression out of Neeb. But TY doesn't strike me as much of a cheeser as some of the other Korean Terrans. Would you agree with that, Lee?
Yeah, I mean, he certainly has been, you know, throwing a proxy once or twice in his life. He's a fan of the proxy starport Hellion drop as well. Actually, you know, in regards to the Hellion drop, that's part of the reason why I'm a little bit excited for Neeb's chances here. Like, normally I would say, oh, TY 3-0 easy, right? No offense to Neeb. I'm sure Neeb would actually probably agree on you know, most times back in the day. But this is, you know, after seeing that series against Clem, you know, the medevac Hellion sort of harassment that Clem attempted, I feel like that was one of the more convincing games from Neeb when he shut that down and got himself a lovely spot at the beginning of that game. I think it was on Death Aura. And, you know, shutting that down, I mean, TY's kind of the guy that wrote the book on that strategy. Like, I don't know if he invented it, but he certainly popularized it. And we do have the SCV coming in here for a scout. TY's dotting his I's, crossing his T's, and dotting his lowercase J's, making sure that the Protoss isn't up to anything super sinister here.
Even forcing that command center to be built in a weird spot is always annoying. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but if you play Terran, you hate having to make that extra step. But you bring up an excellent point, Maynard, as this adept continues its little poke. But I think I actually cast that game, and I remember at the end of it, Neeb in the interview was saying, he's like, oh yeah, it's like, actually I think that build is just bad. He's like, I've never struggled against this like fast Hellion stuff. He's like, I've never thought that this was like a problem build, at least for himself. So I'm interested to see how well he holds off against something like that. He's gonna take a quick third Nexus. Usually you think the third Nexus is like fast at 4:30, but at 3 minutes and 20 seconds, Maynard, Neeb's being a greedy boy.
He most certainly is. TY's going to confirm that with this Hellion. That's the powerful thing about this Hellion, is that it does outpace these gateway units, and you do get a good scout off, and if you're really lucky, a couple probes as well. So he's going to see that third Nexus. TY now has as much information as he could possibly want at this point. He is getting a medevac up, so it looks like he may try and ferry up some harassment here with the medevac, potentially even marry up with the Marines for a little bit of early, like, I don't have any upgrade kind of attack here. And yes, that is going to be the case. We've got, looks like 6 Marines and a medevac here, a few Hellions coming up to try and just burst down the small amount of defense that Neeb has. I mean, he is being very greedy, so he doesn't have a lot.
Yeah, there really isn't a whole lot here, just that shield battery, but we know with the power of that shield battery overcharge that you can still do a tremendous amount of damage. The Hellions, of course, will not be able to be fixed as easily out on the field, but they have that bonus damage against the Adepts. There's the overcharge that we were talking about. Now he's going to immediately pull back towards where that third base is, bringing these Protoss units away from the aforementioned shield battery. And even though, yes, of course, you can retreat to it and get some of the healing done, that overcharge does not last forever. And as long as if these units get overwhelmed, you have to be very, very, very cautious. You can't afford to lose a third base when you go for it like this. And honestly, committing too much to defend it can cost you the game as well. Landed Viking shows up, which is going to be great against the Stalkers. The Hellions run by to the natural, forcing these units to get split up. Big Daddy Immortal to deal with the drop is at least going to be nice, but we're in the one-shot territory with 3 Hellions alive. We don't care about your shield batteries.
That's right. And these Marines have been being annoying. They're just trying to drain that shield battery in the natural. I mean, that was the play from TY, was finding the defensive units of Neeb distracted by the attack there, and then getting 3 Hellions into a probe line. That's devastating for Neeb. Loses 7 probes. Obviously, he's still alive. He's still in an all right spot economically, but losing 7 probes, I mean, imagine how much further ahead he'd be with that 3rd Nexus if he hadn't taken that damage. Certainly a spanner in the works, but thankfully no player dead yet. Is he rallying SCVs out there? Where are you going, little fella?
Hey, look at that. See, it happens. It even happens to the pros sometimes, guys.
So
you know,
he is human.
He is human after all. Yeah, I think that's like that's every Terran players. Like when you get excited during an attack and you're like, okay, rally everything forward, and then all of a sudden you got 7 SCVs. Get 7 SCVs outside their base, and they're like, oh my god, I'm getting all in. They're pulling the boys. I'm like, nope, I'm just bad. Sorry about that.
Please like and subscribe to my channel.
There's no train on the way. Sorry, this one came off the tracks. My bad.
So Neeb's actually going double forge here as well to follow things up. So you know, he likes that sort of, I even call it like an older school way of playing TVP, because it feels like a lot of Protosses are just going single forge now and saving those resources for like just going up to multiple Colossi. So it's cool to see the double forge play again. Obviously, that's going to help out your Zealots quite a bit when the attacks do come in. Speaking of which, TY moving out with those Marinas. They do have stim 21 of, with 2 tanks, so maybe a 3rd tank to marry up as well. Combat Shield's going to finish by the time he gets over there. He's going to try his luck here in the main base with a mine. Oh, Neeb not pulling his first away.
Yeah, five workers, especially considering it's completely unseen. That does hurt. That 1-1 you were talking about is not going to be done for a little while, and neither will the range upgrade for the Colossus. There's already 2 Vikings here, and of course with siege tank support, we know that that's dangerous. He's going to try to fight on top of the ramp, has the Immortals focus firing down the tanks. I did not expect Neeb to try and jump on the army quite like this, but it seems like it was the best play that he could have made. However, Big Daddy Colossus is going down as well.
Certainly not a free hold for Neeb, but it is a hold. You know, that's the operative word in there, is that he did hold on. TY is reinforcing. Oh my god, that was Combat Shield first without stim. Excuse me, so I miscalled it there. He just starts stim now. And this is, you know, means that these units for Neeb are actually quite a bit easier to kite with the Stalkers. He can outrange the Marines with a little bit of stutter stepping. Of course, the tank does need to be respected. The Vikings less so, but of course, you know, you don't want to be losing any Stalkers to those either. Losing the Colossus was expensive, but he does keep you on to his 3rd base. He does still have a 17 worker lead. Now 16 at the moment as TY lands his 3rd. It feels like things are all right here for Neeb. He's going to have that 1-1 upgrade lead with TY's engineering bay upgrades just kicking in now.
So this is probably the best way that this could have played out for Neeb then, right? He trades 1 power unit to completely hold off what generally can become a game-ending push if those tanks siege up outside your base. They're able to get a bunker down, a couple of extra Vikings with medevacs and whatnot, but not only does Neeb get away with a stupid fast 3rd base, he gets the double forge that you were talking about. Those upgrades are well ahead of the bio player, now chrono boosting that 2-2 out. But Maynard, that 4th base is going up at a pretty nice, sexy time for the Protoss too. And with the extra gateways finishing up, that's when we start to see this turn into, hey, does Neeb want to try and do that big old, I'm going to kill you with a bunch of charge lots and spread out and whatnot around the 3rd? Is he going to try to do it on the 4th? Or maybe he'll just try to catch him in the middle of Jagannatha. There's a lot of different ways that this can play out. But I think if you're hoping for an upset here, if you're like, I want Neeb to beat TY, well, so far, the dream is very much still alive.
Yeah, for all those American fans out there, Protoss fans, just straight up Neeb fans, I'd start waving that flag and starting to get a little bit bouncier and straighter backed in my chair, because this is looking quite good for the American Protoss at the moment. Of course, the game is not over yet. TY is doing the correct thing, I think, right now. He's like, okay, my pushes haven't worked. So right now, it's time to get as close to, you know, 4th base saturated as we can possibly get as a Terran. I feel like you get your 4th base up as a Terran, you get that saturated, you can go to the late game pretty easily and also really go toe-to-toe with those tier 3 Protoss units. At the moment, it feels like TY's army is nowhere near good enough to face Neeb's army, which is not only better upgraded, but better technology. You know, TY needs to have a higher Liberator count or Ghosts or, you know, a serious amount of tanks or something like that to actually pick a fight against Neeb's army. Straight up bio feels like it won't cut it.
No, and I think is well important to keep in mind armory timing, right? Just the feed I'm getting is just blurry enough that I think an armory is building in the production tab. Yes, okay, so we're almost at halfway done on that. But the 1-1's already been done, Maynard. So even tiny things like that I'm going to tell you something, and I think you know this, and anybody who plays Terran and Protoss should know this, but if you get into a fight with Bio and you're down 2 upgrades to the Protoss player, generally speaking, it's, it's like you kind of tossing your army into a blender sometimes. It's very hard to win when you're super far behind on upgrades in TVP, and this army from Neeb is actually terrifying. He's pushing right as 2-2 is done. There is no opportunity really other than just the siege tanks and liberators to try and defend against this. The upgrades won't not entirely be there for the Bio. He's hitting from the east, he's hitting from the north, he's hitting from the east and the north. The Colossi, east side one is going to get killed, but the Zealots charging forward onto the siege tanks now onto the Bio are continuing to carry that momentum through the third base. SCVs were pulled and 14 of them died, so you might be able to say at the end of the day that this was somewhat of a hold for TY, but it was not for free.
Certainly not. And with that Colossus going down as well, TY does make him pay a little bit more there at the tail end of that engagement. So yeah, Neeb did some damage for sure. 14 SCVs is really massive. TY's kind of been down a dozen plus workers this whole game anyway. It's as small as a small, glass half full situation here for the Terran. And that 4th base is finishing up. So at the moment, it feels like TY can recover economically. I do feel like maybe throwing some harassment across the map, whether it be in the form of Liberators or throwing out a medevac worth of units or something, just trying to get into the face of Neeb and slow him down a little bit. But keep most of your army at home is kind of the right call for TY. You can see he's being very defensive, very passive. He just wants to get those upgrades up. He wants Neeb to come to him, to his sieged up tanks, because going across the map would absolutely be suicidal. There's still way too much Protoss here for Neeb. He still has plenty more resources to get a lot of charge lots in front of that bowl of tier 3 units. So it kind of feels like a catch-22 at the moment here for the Terran.
Yeah, there's only so many good moves. I think there's a couple of things you need to just make sure you do, though, if you want to be able to survive late game TVP. And first and foremost, in my opinion, is you need to get Liberator upgrades, right? Get Liberator range, get your ship weapons so that your Liberators can start 2-tapping the Stalkers. Liberators are the ultimate, no-no zones that you can set up. Your opponent's not going to be able to push in, not going to be able to make those easy attacks. But at the same time, that 4th base needs to get set up maybe a little bit faster in the midst of all of that chaos. Perhaps the attack delay could be a part of it, but you want to be making sure you're getting those tier 3 upgrades. You want to get your ghosts out. EMP is going to be invaluable regardless of whether or not your opponent ever gets Templar. That could, that's potentially hundreds of damage if you splash those EMPs. But I'm looking at a 5-base Protoss player now who's got 3 upgrades finishing in a hot second, and +3 is only just now starting for TY. So he's not going to have like this brawler army setup where he can just take fights in the open field like this. The Zealots and the Stalkers are going to be enough to scare him off. And on a big map, you absolutely need to try to find another way to deal damage when the Protoss is just taking bases left and right. Because if Neeb's like, oh, I'm going to get my 6th, and TY is still kind of boxing his base, that's where I start to sweat a little bit for the Terran player, Maynard.
Certainly. I mean, I'm sweating already looking at these units that Neeb's get working towards. We've got the Invisible Man Clubhouse finishing. That's the Dark Shrine for those uninitiated. And also Disruptor production. And that's when you know, and Stargate and +1 ship weapons. Like, Neeb is super prepared for the ultra late game if it gets there. It feels like he's been a step ahead of the way this whole game. And it hasn't really swung back in a TY's side yet. Like, the scales are still Neeb favored. But, anytime a Terran maxes out with 4 bases and 70+ SCVs, I mean, I feel like you can start throwing stuff at the Protoss and seeing what sticks. Top left is going to be attacked here by TY with a paltry force of Bio and a couple Widow Mines.
Yeah, the Widow Mine, I think, are potentially a big key in helping to bring this together, but Neeb has so many cannons around his bases. I really like the way that he's batting down the hatches. Good pick off on that full medevac on the way out as well. But look at this. He's like, you know what I'm going to do? Forget, it's double Forge 2, double Cybercore Boogaloo. That's what we've got going on over here. He's going to have all of the air upgrades so that whenever that transition comes, you might be thinking, oh, well, the interceptors and all that die pretty fast. Like, well, no, the interceptors may actually have +2 armor by the time you're fighting against those. Or, obviously it could be Tempests as well. But I really like the way that Neeb's kind of ticking off the boxes. And TY is doing the smart thing as well, because I think he recognizes the risk to stepping outside of his base in this type of situation, because he's now up to 5 bases. And Neeb has been very slow on trying to grab that 6th, Maynard. He's been content to not overextend himself, and while I completely get it, TY has, he's a turtle. He's a turtle. He's pulled his arms and his legs and his head inside, and without, okay, don't kill your own Colossus, please. There are only so many ways. There are only so many ways to deal with a player who is doing that outside of really just trying to be excessively greedy. So I feel like there's a little bit of risk to the economies getting evened out as TY is going to start stepping out of his base, but we'll just have to keep our eyes on the way this engagement plays out. There's not a tremendous amount of stalkers either.
Yeah, these Vikings are actually having a bit of a field day here, although they do fly over those Archons for a second there, and their numbers got erased by those Archons. So TY has lost his anti-Colossus countermeasures. I was feeling pretty confident for TY's army there. I'm like, oh, these Colossus aren't really a thing at the moment with these Vikings, but whoops, turns out Archons have anti-air abilities. And there's that carrier production there for Neeb, going to max out with those Skytoss units. You know, Skytoss units are really powerful in this matchup when you've got the splash damage underneath them to punish the Marines. And that disrupted over to the north was a great connection there. A bit of a whiff on those last couple. Oh, that last one, just at the end, that fourth disruptor got some good hits on that bio. The army size of TY still quite large, though. A lot of it's still in production. Same deal for Neeb, though. We got more disruptors, more carriers on the way. It still feels like a very, very trepidatious moment for both players. Like it's balanced on a razor's edge right now.
And these game situations can always get weird because once upon a time people would be like, why would you build carriers versus a bio player? Marines are pretty good. And then you realize that sometimes that army composition doesn't actually have as many Marines as you might think it would have. So these transitions can still be strong. Obviously the disruptors and Storm Archons are always going to be good against those bio forces. But once you get up to that crazy number of carriers, you realize that all your Marauders aren't really as useful as you thought they were. Your Ghosts become big targets for the old right-click Reno, and Vikings die pretty quickly to carriers as well. So you need to make sure that you're getting those air upgrades, which he is. He's getting the +2 ship weapons. That's very important. Carriers have a lot of health.
Wow.
If you're going to use Vikings, you want to make sure you're actually killing them as fast as you can. But if there's any silver lining here, it's that there's a limit to how many upgrades you can actually get. So TY, at the very least, is able to even things out. 3-3 for the ground is going to be nice, but there's those very fancy carriers. Neeb flexing on him with his prize money that he spends on skins in the game.
Indeed. Ooh, decent EMPs there. Ghost getting some connections, and the Disruptor's not really finding any. He does get rid of those last few Vikings. And of course, the carriers have been shown to TY, who, you know, we saw a shot of the main. He's got triple Ghost Academy, and those are nukes in production, Nate. So he's working on his way to weapons of mass destruction. We'll see if they play a part in this game, of course. TY's got a lot to do before they get to play a factor. Nova clipping a few of those bio units there on the high ground. And Neeb just trying to advance to this position. TY attacking to the top left with whatever he can spare. And that's really been the tough thing for TY, is that it feels like he hasn't had a lot of units to spare to throw away from his main army to try and go for harassment, to try and do damage to the Protoss. His presence on this side of the map has really been lacking since the beginning of the game. He's pretty much had everything in a giant ball, trying to you know, keep the main army of Neeb away from his infrastructure. And for the most part, he's succeeding, at least for the past, like, 5 minutes, it feels like he has been. Oh, God, this carrier count's getting really, really high.
Yeah, and at some point, that becomes the issue, right? Especially as long as Neeb keeps his economy growing and you don't have to worry about burning interceptors and whatnot. The most important thing is that the carriers eventually become quite difficult to deal with, because you can't just stand there and shoot the interceptors when there's disruptors. So even those handful of siege tanks that have kind of been left at home are still incredibly important for the success here. I think if you're Neeb, you want to try to wedge yourself between these two bases, right? And then use that to kill the pocket base in the corner. But that's why there's 3 siege tanks in that spot, Maynard. TY recognizes the weaknesses of his army and also how to capitalize on what his army is strong at. But based around, he's going to try and hit this army from multiple angles. The Archons and the Disruptors doing their best to hang in there, but it's not going to be enough. A recall gets activated, and the Disruptors and a carrier left behind. That's a massive, catastrophic loss for Neeb.
That was like a 270-degree surround there from TY, with units coming from every single angle. What a flank from the Terran, and he just found that dream engagement that you want to get. He got rid of a lot of the splash damage, really reset the disruptor count, killed a couple carriers, but also got rid of a lot of Archons. And that's just such a fantastic move there from TY, and that's got himself another footing in this game, like a breath of fresh air. I'm not going to say that he's ahead right now, but he does have some breathing room to do exactly like this, to expand again, to move forward on the map.
Yeah, the only silver lining here is that you see Neeb immediately gets the supply back up. He still had a pretty good bank to rebuild a decent number of those forces, and we have the mothership here as well now with those carriers, and he's getting those 3-3 upgrades that are going to be done soon. I think I don't know if it's the lack of storm, but those Vikings have been able to have a little bit of a field day. It's a tremendous amount of Archons are pretty much the only thing he's got other than the carriers with this army. Is the Disruptors haven't, well, a couple of them get moved forward, but he's able to wipe the ground army. on this base. The Vikings weren't able to actually deal with this. That tanky mothership. I think he's aggressive enough of a player that he doesn't mind playing on a small map like Submarines. Let's see what he's got in the top left. He's leading the series 1-0. He's the American Protoss player representing Ting. It's Neeb.
And in the bottom right here from the Afrika Freaks, the GSL champion and the reigning leader of my heart. This is TY. He's an emote in my channel for a reason. This guy is the guy that I wish I was 1/10 as good as. He is so incredibly good, so incredibly intelligent. It felt like game one, it just really, it was never a comfortable game for TY. Like it felt like he kind of lost control of the game and never managed to get it back in game one, which feels like a bit of almost like a chokehold that you just can't get out of. It's like watching a jiu-jitsu match between two people where one guy's pinned and just never gets off the ground, never gets off his back. And that kind of what felt like exactly what Neeb got on TY there in game one. Game two here, we've reset the board and things are going to switch over. In fact, Neeb, generally this guy's Mr. Normal, Mr. Stock Standard, Mr. I'm just going to play your dad's PVT, but he's actually going for the early proxy pylon here. Just almost certainly for some early gateway pressure, or maybe if he wants to wait for the Cybercore, drop a Stargate right in his face.
I think it's going to be Stargate. He's done the Void Ray memes a few times, and the gas count is certainly going to line up with the finishing of the cybernetics core. And that's exactly what I was saying. I feel like Neeb doesn't have to limit himself like other types of more defensive Protoss players might, because he doesn't mind playing a scrappy, aggressive game. Like that whole series against Australia kind of spoke volumes, but just the way that he's been very good on the defense against the early shenanigans. And he's like, well, what's TY going to do to me on this map? Like, what is he going to do? If I open Cybercore first, like what realistically, if he's going to proxy Reaper me and then, I chrono boost out a few adepts and a shield battery and then kind of hold it, Marines, similar situation. And I'm not saying that he couldn't, TY couldn't kill him with those types of builds, but I guess the point is that Neeb feels comfortable that he can defend it. So if you think you can hold on, if you think it's not going to be a problem, then I see absolutely no reason why you shouldn't try to make it happen. And that first Void Ray is on the way. TY has seen it. He knows it's coming, but he's going to need a whole lot more than a few Reapers to deal with that attack that is going to be headed over his way. And it's beautiful. You see this type of build, Maynard, and you look at Neeb's camera. He's got that killer focus. He's got that serial killer, completely bare walls, not even the white sheet and the pillow on the bed, no Power Rangers, nothing, just focus, nothing that can distract him from killing his opponent.
Oh man, well, the Void Ray cheese has begun here from Neeb with the pressure of the pylon getting down here. It looks like he wanted to get it a little bit closer to the Terran's wall in, but it's going to take a little bit more conservative approach here with the Void Ray starting to burn down this depot, and it looks like it's going to get it. This SCV cannot out-heal the prismatically aligned Void Ray, and the Adepts just biding their time, ready to just give himself a little bit of that high ground, ready to shade on in and cause problems here for the Terran. Feels like this 2-racks opener has already kind of shot himself a foot a little bit here, because Marines are just not that great against this. You really want Cyclones, you really want Vikings if you can get to that point as a Terran. But yeah, Giant Ball of Marines is better than nothing, that's for sure. But you would definitely rather these Tech Lab factory units.
Yeah, and here's the thing, right? The Cyclone can be really good. A Cyclone damage with Magfield is great, but it takes a while to research that upgrade. And as soon as the Protoss player sees that spinning Tech Lab, you are going to have to commit everything to defending it, because Neeb knows that is the ace in the hole for his opponent. And he immediately targets that down. Now, one of the Void Rays is going to get love, but the battery's there. He gets the... Ooh, he was so close to canceling that, too. Oh, my God. This game's on a knife's edge. You know what, Lee? I know it's late over there. It's 6 a.m. here. The sun's starting to come up, but I am wide awake watching this one.
Yeah, this one's got me on the edge of my seat. I tell you what, I'm puckering over here. That Tech Lab nearly going down with Magfield would have been devastating for TY, but he does keep it up. and it looked like Neeb was going to overextend, then TY was going to overextend, and the second Cyclone's out right now, and it looks like he's getting closer and closer to having Magfield, which is obviously fantastic for the Terran, at least on paper. Of course, execution matters here a lot as well, as Neeb still has this really annoying contain here on the Terran. It's going to be a long time before TY secures a natural, with the Nexus going up back on Neeb's side of the map. He's looking pretty good.
Yeah, this is a nice position to be in. Like you haven't really killed your opponent, but nothing has really gotten out that can hurt you a tremendous amount. I guess you've got these two guys over here that have been kind of zooming around, but just to quickly go over it, the Magfield upgrade doubles the effective DPS of the Cyclone's lock-on ability, and it's important because it only affects armored units, but it also makes that DPS such that it overpowers the shield battery. So normally you're trying to kill a Void Ray, the shield battery just heals it, and you can't ever really finish it off, but if you've got a Cyclone or two that lock onto one with Magfield upgrade, even if there's a shield battery, you're still actually going to kill it if you can keep vision of it. So that's the most important thing that helps you to break out. But the other problem, though, is when you play with ground units here, you don't have an easy way to play around that ramp, because if your Cyclones get stuck there, if the Void Rays are able to shoot the Cyclone for like 1 second, maybe less, you know, they're all going to die.
Shield batteries are in range of this tank here, so TY starting to cause Neeb a little bit of mischief at the moment. He's trying to force his hand into having to do something about this tank. As TY starts to get towards securing that natural, 3 Cyclones with this tank. I like that Neeb's thrown in some Phoenixes though. Like normally you would see non-stop Void Ray production. Some players even go into Tempest from here, but I like the Phoenixes to try and lift up those factory units so the Void Rays can get the rest done. Maybe TY might have a little bit too much here. That is a big ball of Marines, even without upgrades. This many Marines, huge threat to the air army.
Yeah, and I really like the Phoenix, though, because as you pointed out, it's a good complement to the Void Ray. And the other reason why it's nice is Phoenix are light units. So Cyclones, they don't do bonus damage. The Magfield is useless against them. And because the Phoenix can just lift up the Cyclones, they can also cancel those lock-ons. So you don't want to leave the Cyclones alone. Everything still has to stay together, which is very, very important, because if it was only Void Rays, there's a pretty easy path to go for a huge counterattack here if you're TY. And not to say that he won't try to go for a counterattack at some point, but it is going to be way harder to do when, you've got a couple of gateway units fighting the Marines, and then all the Cyclones get lifted and the Void Rays kill them in the air in half a second, and things can snowball out of control. So TY, I don't think he's going to feel super comfortable trying to make a big move out with the number of Phoenix that are there. And if he does, I'd be a little bit concerned for him.
Yeah, I think his first step here, and you might agree with me, Nate, is to just get rid of this proxy. Just make sure that thing goes away, and then try and take a natural behind it. Then he's going to go up to the north here and start doing exactly that. Getting rid of this is one less thorn on his side. It means less Stargate units. And Neeb is going into charge here back on his side of the map, of course, with the natural security. He's also going to +1 armor, so it looks like a big switch in the ground here for Neeb. Phoenix is going to fly over and see what they can pick off. Some SCVs definitely vulnerable. TY, no turrets, no nothing like that. He's going to lose a bunch of workers now while that army is out in the map. Oh, man. Really good drive-by here from Neeb, finding a ton of that econ damage.
And this is exactly the way to do it. This is a lot of Cyclones, and this is a very good way to do it, though, because if you can get the lock-on before the Phoenix engage you, then the Cyclones are going to be good against them. This is actually a really nice amount of Cyclones that he has, but if you try to leave your base, try to move out and do that, then you're exposed to so much potential damage. Maynard, it's 45 probes to 22 SCVs.
Yep.
Yeah, and that sentence says it all. So there is a tremendous amount of pressure on TY to do something, because he's got a huge army. He's ahead in army supply. This is a massive, terrifying force. But at the same time, that's what the concern was with getting backstabbed by those Phoenix or those Void Rays. And I think killing a few of the Phoenix, this is going to be the moment where he makes that big play. So that everything's going to come together and try to do a huge attack. This is a lot of mechanical units, a lot of heavy firepower. Can Neeb defend? Because he's trying to take a third base. He's getting some Archons, but if you don't have charge and a tremendous amount of Zealots, you're going to need a good amount of Zealots to break this, I think.
And he does have charge, but I think you're right on the Zealot count. There's not that many at the moment. TY's army does feel like it's better right now, but Neeb's going to come on in. The Archon's a huge threat to the Fireball. It just gets into the fight at the moment. Oh, man, he's actually lifting the tanks out of the battle. The Cyclone count really does get erased for the most part. It's a trade from both sides for sure, but like you mentioned, Nate, TY's down 20+ workers, so this really needed to work out for him.
The Void Rays. It's the Void Ray Phoenix. Neeb goes up 2-0.
Freaks. Shut the freak up.
Wow. Tell me how you really feel about me, Maynard. In the bottom right.
Did.
Oh, his opponent, the blue Protoss player, the American, the Thundershaft. He is Neeb.
Don't worry, Nate. Douse your tears with the American flag. No doubt you have several draped in your room right now, just off camera.
Yes.
Oh, he's had enough. This is how you know the Korean has had enough of this foreigner. Is when the barracks is built out on the map.
Yeah, he's gonna try and get some shenanigans. Now the barracks in the main is still like a, hey, if you probe scout me, I don't want you to think this is happening. But usually if one's back at home, makes me think that like maybe you build, I don't know, there's a couple different ways you can do this. It depends if he ever gets that second gas, because it can still just be like a 2-Rax Reaper and just try to put pressure on with the first one and have the second one to overwhelm. But because it's going to come from home, it's going to be a little bit slower, right? So is he going to get a tech lab and build a Marauder or something weird? I don't know. I don't think I've seen a tremendous amount of TY specifically doing the one proxy racks. Okay, yeah, there it is, the tech lab. Because I'm like, I don't think Reapers really make sense. It's just a fake out of the build at home to make him think that it's something else, like a proxy factory or starport maybe.
As TY here, small aside and very small note, I would be very much trying to sell that I'm going to expand behind this with a SCV on the low ground. Neeb might have a few questions as to why there's no SCV down here right up that barracks. Also, why the depot is so quick up there in the main base. Why is he walling off the main? Seems a little bit scary. And of course, we can see with that cast of God cams, it is a proxy marauder. This probe very active still on the south side. So Neeb is actually picking up what TY is putting down, and he's about to scout this proxy.
Yeah, that's a good thing to see because generally, right, when we see the Terran wall off their main very quickly against a probe scout and there's no command center, it's pretty much almost always been the proxy factory or proxy starport, and it's just one of those Hellion builds, and that can cause you to, maybe prepare for something that isn't actually happening, and then boom, Marauders can custom shell tag your stalkers and everything dies. But the best answer to this, I think, is still what he's doing, right? Get a bunch of shield batteries, chrono out your gateway units, and leverage that, because otherwise you can't really do a tremendous amount against this. But Terran, for their bio, there is no healing option until you have medevacs. So when you do a cheese like this, when you bring this little slice of cheddar over, you don't have too much else to work with. Now, some of those other batteries take a little bit to finish. The gateway being up front is also something that you like kind of worry about if a bunker were to have been started out front. But TY's like, yeah, there's only so much you can do here. 3 Marauders all focusing one stalker will kill it with the battery there, but that's going to require Neeb to make a pretty careless mistake.
It will indeed. It feels like TY is starting to pull out of this. The SCVs have gone back home kind of awkwardly. They showed up and they're like, oh, okay, it's a lot of Protoss. And they went back to working, being, mining units again as they return back to the main base. Keep in mind that this is just the main base here. TY, no natural. He is one basing. He's getting a factory. He's making workers again, but his economy, I mean, he shot himself in the foot here with this build. He's hindered his own economy to try and do damage early game to Neeb, potentially kill Neeb, and he's found extremely minimal damage. He's found hit points on gateway units, Nate. That's what he's done so far.
Yeah, and that's not the best spot to be in, because if there's another pattern, Maynard, I'm gonna direct your eyes to something that is going to be terrifying, just like it was last game, and it's not that beautiful tech lab, but it is the worker count, as we've got 37 probes to 24 SCVs. And I know, I get it. I completely understand. We've all lost a game to a Terran who cheesed, and then we're like, frickin' mules. But this is not that game. One mule does not make up a almost 20 worker difference. I'm sorry. No. There's no way that I can attempt to, try to paint that picture for you. TY is going to have his natural, stupid late, and if I was Neeb looking at the way this game's been playing, maybe you want to get like a prism and do some poking, or take your third base and do one of those just absolute like hammer throws or something with a massive push when the Terran tries to get their third. If they ever do, honestly, maybe TY is just gonna just freaking send it, because I don't know how many other options he thinks are on the table when his opening has flubbed this hard.
Now, Neeb is out here dealing with this tech lab at the moment. His units are a little out of position, and TY is boosting over to the Protoss side of the map now. Neeb does have a bit of an opening in his defense at the moment, a bit of a weakness in the armor at the moment, but TY's units feel very, very volatile here with the Stalker count. Everything's kind of in this medevac at the moment. TY's just trying to buy time to get his medevac up. In come the Hellion, straight up TY style. The Hellion medevac's going to that probe line, but Neeb with that warp in, deflecting this damage completely. Oh, is that medevac dead? Yes, it is. What a hold from Neeb. TY's in a disastrous position.
Yeah. So we go from bad to worse, and the armory coming in will be nice, but I like the gravitic drive. I like the disruptor. I think the best thing that you could do right now as Neeb is just play stupid greedy, but give yourself a harassment tool, because honestly, it won't take too much pressure to make TY crumble in this position if you're able to find the right spot to push on, because he's had these units out on the map. He's been all over the place. He's spreading these Marines out, but guess what? When you've got a speed prism, you're not really worried about a handful of naked Marines just chilling in the open field. You can zoom around, you can go by, and that prism is still going to be a very, very big threat. He says, you know what? I'm just going to kill these Marines you left out on the map. Thank you. Thank you for your generous donation. I'll read your name out. You get a little, you know, we'll put you on the list. I'll put you on the wall behind me. He's got a clear wall. You can put some stickers there for those donations. Always appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting towards that season, of course, being able to hang that TY's name on a star and his Christmas tree in the background. Going to go that Nova going into the main base here, gets an SCV, of course, like you mentioned, Nate, this Prism with speed and with this disruptor are just a threat that TY can't really convincingly deal with at the moment. It's going to rely pretty heavily on these Widow Mines, finding some value here, and he goes boost into the natural. Once again, Neeb not looking at the probes. Pulls them there at the last second on the left side of Widow Mine connection, not too bad. Right side gets 3 more. I mean, 5 is okay. It's better than 0. Is he watching the natural? Oh! Oof. Oh my God.